Welcome to Hellblazer Biz, everyone. Today I'm delighted to welcome a very special guest to the show. He's a man whose life has taken him from behind the scenes of some of the most iconic films and television shows of our time to becoming a filmmaker in his own right. Paul Eliacin spent more than 30 years working in the entertainment industry. Credits The Sopranos, Law and Order, Men in Black, Conspiracy Theory, some of my favourites there, and many more. And he went on to write and direct his own feature film, Up in Harlem, which is now set to reach a new audience as well. But Paul's story goes far beyond filmmaking. He was also a first responder during the 9/11 rescue and recovery efforts at Ground Zero, an experience that changed his life forever. I'm not surprised. And today we're going to talk about his remarkable journey, his career, filmmaking, experiences during one of the most significant events in modern history, and the work he's continuing to do today. So, Paul, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome to Hellblazer Biz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You've had such an extraordinary journey. It's taken you, like I said, from working behind some of the scenes on some of the biggest shows and films in TV in New York to writing and directing your own feature film. And obviously you were first responder, like I mentioned, down at Ground Zero on 9/11. So when you look back on your life so far, what do you think has been the driving force that's kept you moving forward?
My driving force was the desire to get in the film industry, to be part of what's going on in the film industry. I remember as a child growing up, I've always wanted to somehow, some way be involved in the film industry. So what I did was I wrote to Spike Lee, and Spike Lee sent me a manuscript on the movie School Days. And I was amazed by what I saw and the writing and the format of it. I said, this is exactly what I want to do. This is where I want to be. And so after reading his manuscript, I went around and to backstage and got myself a headshot. And I was going around to different film set, submitting my headshot, wanting to be an actor. And lo and behold, I met this gentleman doing Boomerang, who's a captain for local 817 theatrical Teamsters. And I saw a bunch of them. They were getting ready to do something. So I offered my headshot to the security. He said, no, I can't let you upstairs. He said, these gentlemen work for Boomerang. Give them your headshot. So he said, they're Teamsters. I said, Teamsters? I said, I've always wanted to work on the film industry. How can I get in? And then the captain, which is the leader of the job, offered me a number. And then I called, and it was his brother, who's the president of the union, and the secretary picked up. I said, my name is Paul Eliacin. I'd like to know how I could join the Teamsters union. She passed me over to him, and all of a sudden he said, when can you come in for an interview? And from there on, it went, that was it. Matter of fact, I ended up working on Boomerang as my first film.
Wow. That's a fantastic story to say how you got into it.
Yes. Prior to that, I worked on a small independent film called Straight Outta Brooklyn by a gentleman named Matty Rich. And that also inspired me to go further because I watched him and I helped him and I wore many hats for his production. So I was fascinated by what I saw. So I said, this is exactly what I want to do. Yeah.
Brilliant. That sounds a really inspiring story, Paul. It really is. And I mean, you grew up in Brooklyn as well, and you have spoken before, obviously, about experiencing difficult times when you were younger. So how much do you think those early experiences have shaped the man and the filmmaker and the mentor that you've become now?
My early experiences was like, I grew up in, without a father, and I grew up around my siblings, brothers and sisters, with one mother who had two jobs, trying to make ends meet to raise us. And so that alone made me want to be somebody or be something so that I could help my mother out. So those are the experiences that I have growing up in Brooklyn. I remember going to Wingate High School, which is, just blocks from where I live. And I recall my mother coming to work every day and then going right back out to work again, trying to feed us and trying to raise us. And my father had passed. So I had to look up to her as a motherly and a fatherly love, for the help.
Yeah.
So there's some struggles, in the past, and from that struggle, I learned.
Hmm. Okay. And do you kind of think adversity can sometimes give a person a different perspective on storytelling? So do you think that's, yeah, a different, that's just obviously someone else. So yeah, maybe that.
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, if you went through the stuff that I went through, you've seen a lot, you've heard a lot. So
Hmm.
give you the mindsetting of storytelling, So
Hmm.
that helps.
Excellent. I mean, you mentioned it there as well. So 30 years working as a Teamster. For those who might not understand what that role involves, what was day-to-day life for you on a major production? How did that work?
Well, a Teamster's life it could be exciting and it could also be boring
Hmm.
because a Teamster's job. First, let me explain to your audience that a bus driver is a Teamster. Every truck driver is a Teamster. A garbage man is a Teamster. I know you've heard of Jimmy Hoffa. He was a
Hmm.
president of Teamster.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still looking for him. And so that's a Teamster's life. They are basically truck drivers. But in my case, as theatrical Teamsters, local 817, we work only on film commercials and television show. So
Hmm.
we are theatrical Teamsters. So we
Okay.
look at a variety of film and commercials and TV shows that's going on in New York City. So
Hmm.
you get assigned to one of these film or TV shows, and you're there for duration until the end of the show, and then you call what they call shape. You call the union, you say I'm available, and they'll assign you to another television or TV show. But once you're on set, depending on the equipment you're driving, and there is grip, there's electric, there's prop, there's camera. Depending on the equipment you're driving, you require to open up the gate and dispense the equipment to the local 52 guys, which are the
Okay.
mechanics of grips and electric. So
Hmm.
if you were in a grip, you hand them the grip stand, and so once you hand it to them, they go out to the set, they set it up, and then the electric put the lights on it. Which, which by the way, bring me to say at Ground Zero, we did precisely the same thing.
Okay.
We went there with generators, we went there with lights,
Hmm.
and there is if you look at one of the videos 3 days after 9/11, my name 3 days after, it was an interview held by the Daily News. In the background, I donated a few footage from Ground Zero, and in the background you see this move the grip stand, and you also
Hmm.
see movie light. So
Okay.
the rental houses donated
Hmm.
generators, donated lights,
Yeah.
donated cameras. I'm sorry, donated lights, donated grip stand. So my
Hmm.
job was to drive it there along with my cousin Dimitri,
Yeah.
and then we would plug into the generator, and
Hmm.
then at nighttime they illuminate the power while the firefighters and police officers dig in trying to save lives. I'm sorry, I got off topic.
Oh, it's all right. No, it's fine. We'll be
Yeah,
covering that as well at some point. So don't worry. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. But it's good to see how you can, you've been able to, well, yeah, put those skills that you'd learned through
yeah,
that, you've been learning through Teamsters into something when obviously everyone had to band together. Those you had that knowledge and the skill set to be able to help on the day, obviously the subsequent days and weeks afterwards as well. It's really, really, really interesting. Obviously, I mean, we mentioned some of the huge productions: Law and Order, Criminal Intent, Sopranos, New York Undercover, Men in Black, Conspiracy Theory, First Wives Club, everything like that. What
worked on all of them.
you worked with all these massive, huge things. What's the biggest thing that you've learned from spending so many years on these professional film and TV sets?
I've learned how to make movies. That's the biggest thing
Hmm.
because there is an area when they're shooting a film or a TV show that's called Video Village. And Video Village, if you walking by a film set in New York, you'll see a lot of people congregating in one section with a tent over, and you see a lot of director's chair, actor's chair, and their name is in the back of that chair. So when I'm not doing anything after I dispense the equipment or whatever department that I'm assigned to as a
Mm-hmm.
Teamster, I would mosey around and go to Video Village, and I would stand behind big guys like Scorsese, Spike Lee, or any one of those guys, and I listen to the lingo and I listen to the selection shots. And so that helps me a lot. And there's something that they hand you prior to the day business is called call sheet. And I think now if you Google call sheet, I think someone created some kind of website. If you want to work, you could type in call sheet on Google, and then there's a section that you could find where they're looking for work. But call
Okay.
sheet give you everything that's gonna happen during that day, from
Mm-hmm.
location to how long they plan on shooting,
Uh-huh.
where the craft services to eat. It also gives you how many actors they need for that day, how many
Right.
background they need for that day, and then there is section everywhere, and then it has the actor's name on there. So those are the things that I look at from your question. That's get me to where I am today. I
Yeah.
learn all these things by sitting behind these directors and finding out how it's done.
Yeah, you couldn't have learned for some better directors there. You're name dropping Spike Lee and Scorsese as well.
Yes,
Some of the absolute masters.
Nero. Yep. I, I, uh, I, some of my earning, I'm self-taught. I didn't go to school to learn how to make a movie. I'm self-taught. So some of the earning came from Matty Ritchie's movie Straight Outta Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall a time where all the cameras was on the shelf and nobody was working. And so I said, you know what, this will be a perfect opportunity for me to start shooting my movie Straight Out of Brooklyn, because I could get professional help for little money because
Mm-hmm.
nobody's working. Everybody want to work. And that's precisely what happened. I put an ad in backstage. I give the location where I'm auditioning. And I had
Mm-hmm.
a line around the corner, people that wanted to work on my film. So my attorney created a deferred payment contract to give to some of the people that I couldn't pay, and then I hired a, a director photographer that came with his own camera, and then I hired a sound lady. Those are the two elements. It's a must that you got to have in your film in order to make your film. So when it was time for me to shoot, I would have
Mm-hmm.
my friend park in the area that I'm shooting at, and before I get there, they would move their car and my truck would come in because I didn't have no permit. I couldn't afford it. And so this is how I improvise. You know, I also remember a time when I had to get a train shot for my movie Open Harlem, and I asked for insurance. It was an extraordinary amount of money. So I
Yeah.
called a production meeting and I
Mm-hmm.
asked my crew if we could sneak there and get the shot. I'll give you guys the rest of the day off. You could go home. And they agreed. So I went down and get the shot. And
Mm-hmm.
you can see that in Up in Harlem. If you ever watch the movie, there's a train shot. And so I pretty much guerrilla style my film. I didn't have any city permit. I just went around with a Super 16, which you could blow up into a 35
Right.
with my DP, and I shot. And I was able to get the help from Ice-T. I was
Mm-hmm.
able to get the help from Medline, who's a reggae rapper. And
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get help from Malira Jones, who's a singer. And I met these people throughout my job as a Teamster,
Right.
became friend with them, and
Mm-hmm.
I called in to them for help, and they helped me. They didn't even charge me any money.
That's
Phenomenal.
amazing. That is very
Phenomenal.
phenomenal. That's really, really kind of them. Phenomenal to do. It's obviously talking about Up in Harlem now as well. Deals with people facing difficult circumstances and trying to overcome adversity. So how much of that story came from things you have personally seen or experienced?
how much that story about my personal experience?
Hmm.
A lot of it. A lot of it. For instance, because I couldn't get backgrounds of individuals in my film. So we shot the average everyday people that's walking around, and I didn't even ask them to sign a waiver or release. And they didn't care, they didn't mind. Later on I would ask my production assistant to go check. They said, I don't care, you could film me if you want to. But because of my struggle in the
Hmm.
past, growing up without a father, and also trying to make it in life with a single mother, a lot of it, a lot of it came through from my struggling, trying to make it in life. That's a lot of it in my film. There's a scene with me and Ice-T talking on the telephone
Hmm.
about a gentleman that was delivering some money for me that I was supposed to take to Ice-T, and he told me that, it's a lot of paper, be careful with it and things of that nature. Those type of the thing growing up and Brooklyn, I had to go through a lot to
Yeah.
be where I am today and to do what I'm doing now.
Right, and that sounds really good. The fact that you've been able to positively change, and you guys obviously such a hard upbringing, and like you say, so faced such adversity, and you've been able to take the positive, so much positive out of that, and been able to and turn things around so much that now look at you, you're making films and getting films produced, your own films, which is what
Exactly,
your dream
exactly.
was. You've worked towards that dream for your life, and you're here now. And I know with Up in Harlem, I think you put a significant amount of your own money and effort to making the film. Was there any point when you thought to yourself, what have I got myself into?
When we got close to the middle of Up in
Mm-hmm.
Harlem, I ran out of money, and that's the point. I said, what have I got myself into? Where am I going to get the funds to finish this film? And this type of back in the days, those are the big element into making a film: funding. If you didn't have your own funding or studio backing or a rich parent that want to see you through and want to see you make it in life, you were doomed. The money you have to make good of it to finish the film. And if
Uh-huh.
you don't, then you have to stop and look for money. And at which point, most of your production people, they're going to look for a better opportunity somewhere where they can make money. So you're going to lose them. And so
Uh-huh.
you're going to have to start all over again with new production people to finish shooting. So it was a struggle. And that's, like I said, when I got halfway through, that's when I said, what have I got myself into? But luckily, I was able to borrow some money and
Uh-huh.
continue filming, and I was able to call Ice-T. By the way, I met Ice-T in 1994 in New York undercover. He flew from LA to New York to shoot New York undercover,
Mm-hmm.
and I befriended him, and I befriended another one of his friends called Shiny Shine, and so we stayed in touch. While he's in LA, we were
Yeah.
talking to each other on the phone. Not so much with Ice-T a lot, but I was talking with his friend. And I brought the idea to his attention that I'm probably going to make a film. You think Ice might be able to give me a hand? He said, don't worry, I'm going to talk to him for you. He's a good dude. Contrary to popular belief, because popular belief is he's a gangster rapper, you know,
Yeah.
but he has a little soft side to himself. If he like you and he embrace you, he think you're a nice guy, he doesn't mind, lending a hand. And the things that he did for me, he would charge the studios lots of
Mhm.
money, but he did it for me for free. He said, I hope and wish you could make it, you know.
Wow.
That's the
That's
type.
really that's a really decent human being.
Of course, of course. Today we friends today. I don't know. I mean, we didn't discuss. I have another film coming up, which is
Mm-hmm.
called The Lights on 9/11.
Yeah.
And in that film, I have Obama. In
Mm-hmm.
that film, I'm also going to have Ice-T. And it's basically me interacting with everyone because I'm retired now.
Yeah.
I spent 24 years working on Law and Order SVU.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm retired a year now, and so I'm gonna go back, and my DP gonna film me interacting with people on the set, and I'm gonna walk in Ice-T's camp and interact with him. So that's how we're gonna get him, and
Yeah.
we already have Obama because I have a firefighter who was in the only firehouse that Obama visited when he came to the annual ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a scene in archive of them shaking hands, interacting, speaking, and him going to lunch with them. So I interviewed that guy. I rented an entire top of a floor of a restaurant and
Yeah.
interviewed him. So we're gonna go back. And I was also there when he went there. I was, I think, on 50th Street. I think
Mm-hmm.
engine number 50.
Right.
When I heard he was going to be there, I ran over there and I interviewed myself, and I was pointing at the fire department, at the firehouse,
Mm-hmm.
and you could see all of the Secret Service agent running around trying to secure the area and pulling up on garbage truck to block the firehouse. And
Yeah.
so that interview is there, and also I have Obama and I have the fire gentleman, which is also he's also a Teamster. He
All
was
right. Okay.
moonlighting as a Teamster and also working as a firefighter.
Yeah.
So that movie is a must see because it talks about the resilience of on darkest day
Mm-hmm.
and how everybody came together, no matter what breed, what color, what
Yeah.
nationality, just to for one point to save lives. And there is no higher calling than to save lives. So it's a very good film. The light on 9/11. It's going to be a great film.
It is. That's what I was about to come on to as well on that one, Paul. But you mentioned Obama then, who's like, I really miss that guy as a president. I'm sure many people do. He was, I think, the best president America has had in a long time. And
Yeah,
that's
I
as
mean,
much
we're
as,
going to commemorate and honor all the fallen heroes
yeah.
and also those who are still alive. And also, there was something else I was going to say. You know, since I've worked 9/11, I became ill with several illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I have a falling type of health. My health is deteriorating, and a lot of us, believe it or not, are passing. The first responders like myself. Every
Mm-hmm.
other month or every other week, somebody's dying from smelling the dust, the toxic dust that was there.
I've
And
heard that.
by the grace of God that I'm here talking to you, and I want to make sure that if something happened to me, my legacy is to leave behind my film, telling my story about
Mm-hmm.
how the film industry played a big role in helping out during 9/11. And which, by the way, I've received several accommodation letters from Joe Biden all the way down to Christine Gillibrand praising me and thanking me for, being there and helping out. I got letters from mayor, from governor, from commissioner, from city council, and I framed it all and put it in my living room.
I'm not surprised. It's nice to have that recognition from there. I mean, I was talking about the film and talking about that kind of period. It was obviously like you say, it was the darkest period in recent history for those kind of. What do you remember most clearly from those days? Because you were right there at the very beginning, when it happened, like you said, setting things up. And without obviously trying to go into too much, make the memories come back. But what kind of stuff can you remember most clearly from those days before we mention
From
more about the
from
film?
9/11,
Yeah.
the worst thing that I could remember was the one of the firefighters came next to the truck, the Teamster's truck, and he says that all hands on deck because they were tired.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of us ran there and give them a relief. And I was one of the guys there. And as I was there helping out, one of the firefighters said to pass a body bag. So that was the worst. That was
Yeah.
the worst. And I'm till today, I'm still traumatized by it.
Yeah. I'm sorry I brought that up, to be honest. I apologize for bringing that up.
Yeah. But outside of that, when there is a body part that's found,
Mm-hmm.
a body that's found, you could tell because everybody's standing up in attention and salute. So that's that was the worst moment when I see that. And to me, no civilization should ever have to go through something like that because I'm by nature I'm kind. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's in my heart to always try to help humanity or wherever I can lend a hand. And so to see what was going on there, it was like a war zone. You see FBI agents jackets, you see Army agent jacket, you see your everyday people walking around helping wherever they can. Everybody was really united, no matter
Mm-hmm.
who you were, helping out. And it was like you would see prayer station. You would see a lady giving a massage to someone that's laying over on a chair that's made for massage. You see a dog going through the rubbles, trying to sniff out a human. You see crane trying to move mementos so they could get around to get to where all the rubbles are. You see tents and firefighters. You see firefighters sitting down, really tired, and they're waiting to go back in again. And as I said before, my job there was precisely the same thing I do as a filmmaker. And the film industry played a major role in helping out at 9/11. So what else could I remember? You see people donating their not only their time, boots, clothing, shorts, water, you name it. And my shift there was a night shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there a lot of the nights was sleepless night with tears in my eyes. And I was required to stay up because I have to help make sure that the light is on. And
Mm-hmm.
when they need an equipment from the truck, I have to make sure that they have that equipment, you know? So I was there several nights, doing that. And then we were not given on top of it, we were not given the proper mask. We were given paper masks at the beginning. And I remember Christy Todd Whitman, I think EPD, I forgot her title, but she said that the air was fine, that it was okay to breathe the air down there. And we find out later, as you know, it's not true. There is more of there is more of 9/11 first responder who died than the actual attack itself. The attack was close to 3,000, 2,700 and something. But firefighters, police officers, and people like me, first responders, there's over 5,000 of us who passed away from smelling that toxin. And I talk about that in my film. The
Mm-hmm.
public don't know about this. And then also some of the stuff that I filmed there, it was deep, deep, deep inside that nobody was allowed to go in.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the pass, so they won't stop me. Where I had a all access pass.
Yeah.
So I sneaked in the camera under my jacket, my denim jacket, and when I get close to the area, I will pull it out and I'll film. And so I captured about 5 hours of footage
Mm-hmm.
and over 300 photos.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's obviously what the basis for the film is. It's based on all that footage that you managed to get.
Yeah,
And what
yeah.
you've touched on there, Paul, what the thing people forget is what you've just detailed in great. Obviously, really very emotional, and I feel myself here as well. If I can feel it through you, is people forget that for many first responders and the volunteers like yourself, that 9/11 never didn't end when the TV coverage stopped, because that's what it's not something you need to answer, but that's just what you've just explained. Is it's continued 25 years later, and here you are still suffering, and many of you are still suffering. Like you said, that 5,000, that I didn't know that. That's shocking to know.
Yes.
But when you think about all the dust and all the poisons and the different plastic, everything that would have been in that dust, what you've had to breathe in when you were just selflessly giving your time and yourselves away to help people, you can see where, in the hindsight, you can obviously, it didn't help people telling you they was trying to breathe the air down below and then just not realizing it's it's continued, obviously, to move forward there.
Sure. So
it's not, I mean, you have said that the documentary is not just your story, it's actually part of New York's story and America's story.
sure.
So why do you think is it important that ordinary people document their experiences of major events? Why is it important for ordinary people to
It's,
document their experiences of
well,
major events?
it's important because of the historic nature of it. And then also you have young kids 25 years later who was not born at the time. They need to remember this. They need to know about it. Just like there's a word that's out there among our everybody, you must never forget. Because you
Mm-hmm.
have this attack was the biggest thing that ever happened to the country outside of Pearl Harbor. It was the biggest thing that ever happened. So not only that, you need to keep this event alive to commemorate and honor the fallen heroes as well as the victim of this tragic. So yeah, I think that's the reason why people need to document it.
Yeah.
I know my film, the ones that the film and the photos that I got,
Mm-hmm.
I put them in a fireproof safe in my house.
Right.
And I kept it up until this time
Mm-hmm.
to release it because I know the milestone is going to be 25 years later if I survive to 25. And luckily I did. I have so much illnesses, some I can't even pronounce.
Right.
From chronic rhinitis, I can't even pronounce chronic cough, TSD. I have mental. I go to a mental health program. I have sleep apnea. You name it. And before we end this program, I want to make sure that I send out a thank you to the U.S. government, Congress, and the senators that signed the Rodrigo bill to give us free medical treatment for us being at 9/11. So I thank them. I thank the U.S. government for that. It
Yeah.
was a good thing. Without their help, I may not have been talking to you today
Yeah.
because I'm on a lot of medications.
Mm-hmm. That's always shocking for me as a British guy to hear, because obviously for over here, our medication is free with the NHS. So, I know how big a thing that is for you to be able to get that, because I've got friends who were diabetic, and the amount of money that in America, and the amount of money they've got to spend, or even just for asthma, it's just disgustingly shocking of a greedy corporate society. Sorry, that's my take on it. But yeah, it's crazy that that can happen, and
Yeah, yeah,
and programs like the Medicaid and things like that, which then just get rubbished off by other people, and and they're there to help the American people, and then I'm not going to get into the politics, don't worry, Paul. But I see certain people that just completely just throwing it out the window and ruining so many people's lives. So yeah, that's a good thing they signed that. So you guys, because you gave everything to
yeah. I
help
mean, as long
in
as
America in a time of need, at the biggest time of need, like you say, since Pearl Harbor. So the least they can do is provide you that free medical.
yep. As long as 9/11 related, we don't pay for it,
Yeah.
and we have a 9/11 yearly program that
Mm-hmm.
they would check up. So we got to go into Mount Sinai Hospital, and at least you go through a lot of different sections, even from taking X-rays, and it takes a half a day to get through everything, and then they send you a result, and they ask you to keep coming because they want to know, know how to treat us, and they want to continue
Yeah.
keeping us involved in the medical situation.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I mean, despite all of this as well, I'll bring a little more positive. Despite everything you've experienced, everything you've gone through, everything you're still going through with the illnesses that you've had and the conditions since then, you continue to mentor and volunteer as an outreach coordinator for homeless and needy people as well, and that's so commendable. It's like, why is giving back still such an important part of your life?
One word I could sum it up is in my nature to help others. It's just the way, I can't say it's the way I was raised, but my mother, maybe I learned through my mother because my mother was the very same way, very, very, very same way. It's in my nature. Believe it or not, working as a theatrical teamster on film commercials and television show, I was able to help my cousin, my sister, my brother, and some friend of mine get in the union so they could have a job as well. And I did it naturally. A couple of them didn't even have to ask me. I just seen their demeanor and I see that they're not working, they need a job. And I would tell them, look, I have a little bit of connection, I could speak to them, but you must get your license, which is a requirement in this job. You must have a truck license because you're driving a truck. But
Yeah.
sometimes, you drive a van, or sometimes you drive an SUV. So, like, I might be assigned to drive Denzel Washington on a movie set, like Malcolm X. So then my job would be to bring him from the hotel to the set, bring him from the set to the hotel. That's my job. So it requires strategic driving lessons, and you gotta be on point, and you gotta be on time. You know,
Hmm.
so I've helped a lot of people like that. So it's just in my nature. Recently, I was doing some outreach in which they wrote a letter for me. I didn't ask them; they just wrote a thank you letter.
Yeah.
Where I was helping feed some Chinese folks
Hmm.
downtown near Chinatown, and there's a building like a lot of old folks that is they they're not, like, they can't get around much, because they have some kind of mobility of physical and so
Yeah.
like they're in a wheelchair or they have a broken limb or whatever. So I would go from door to door along with three other guys, and we would write down what door we fed, what floor we fed, and we go all the way up to the 10th floor, all the way down to the bottom floor. And this is something I did daily. I think it's in one of my pictures in my, not on my website, but one of the pictures when you Google me, that I'm standing there with a Law and Order t-shirt, and you see me closing the food bags so we could take them to the place. I mean, to answer your question, it's just in my nature to help others. It makes my heart so content to
Hmm.
see a smile in somebody else's face. It really does.
Yeah, I know that feeling. It's nowhere near like you, but yeah, as someone who's devoted as much, but it's that's a really noble type thing. If you found out, I know you're very faith plays an important role in your life as well. So I'm presuming a lot of your faith has helped you through all that and helps you to guide yourself and guide your spirit into that kind of a nature as well.
Sure, sure, sure.
Oh, before I close now, I want one more question because it's been absolutely fascinating, but I'm going to have to draw it to a close, sadly. Paul, is if there's one message you want people listening to this podcast or watching this show to take away from your life story, what would it be?
One thing that I would want your listeners to listen to take away from my life story is that we should all be content and happy with one another, no matter if you're poor, no matter if you're rich, just like 9/11. We should all be kind to one another. We should all be helpful to one another. And I know what I'm saying may fall into some deaf ears, and it also will fall into some ears of people that's already embodied that, people that's already doing that, because there's all walks of life, you know. But I would encourage everyone just just be loving and kind and caring to one another. So, that's what I would like for them to take away from my experience and my message. And
Really? That's really, really beautiful. I mean, Paul, your story is one of resilience, determination, creativity, and service to others, which you've just so eloquently put. So you've worked behind the scenes of incredible productions. You've stepped in front of the camera as a filmmaker yourself. You've witnessed one of the most defining and horrific moments in modern history. And you continue to use your experiences to help other people. Thank you so, so much for sharing your story and joining me on this podcast. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to talk to you.
It's my pleasure. One more thing, I wanted to say that my film up in Harlem, I intend to do a re-release. So eventually I'm looking for the distributors, and also my film, The Lights on 9/11. Also I'm going to be looking for distributor on that. So I like to end by letting that out there, and people could search me on imdb.com.